At 11 Madison Park, there were 8 minutes until Alexei Petrov's reservation was canceled, 5 minutes until his true identity was revealed, and only 90 seconds until the restaurant manager lost his job. 11. Madison Park, located in Manhattan's Flatiron district across from Madison Square Park, was one of the world's most prestigious fine dining restaurants. 3 Michelin stars, world's 50 best restaurants list, James Beard Awards. Average dinner cost, $395 per person, reservation waiting list, 4 to 8 months, clientele, celebrities, tech moguls, Wall Street executives. Alexei Petrov, 41 years old, Ukrainian veteran and hospitality mogul, had nerve damage in his left hand from the war in Mariupol, but his business acumen was completely intact. 14 years since coming to America, now CEO of Petrov Hospitality Group, the East Coast's largest fine dining empire, 73 restaurants, 12 luxury hotels, $4.7 billion portfolio. Brandon Mitchell, 34 years old, 11 Madison Park's reservations manager, Johnson & Wales Culinary School graduate, 12 years in the fine dining industry, but problematic regarding unconscious bias and elitist attitudes. Obsessive about high-end service standards, tendency to make assumptions about foreign accents and unfamiliar names. This evening, Alexei was trying to make an inspection dinner for a potential restaurant acquisition. Good afternoon, 11 Madison Park reservations. This is Brandon speaking. Brandon answered the phone with his practiced professional tone. Good afternoon. I'd like to make a reservation for tomorrow evening, party of 4, Alexei replied, his Ukrainian accent immediately noticeable. Brandon paused. The accent triggered his mental profiling system. Foreign caller, probably tourist, likely unfamiliar with fine dining etiquette. Tomorrow evening? Brandon asked, his tone shifting slightly. I'm afraid we're completely booked for the next 5 months. This was partially true. 11 Madison Park maintained long waiting lists, but they also reserved tables for VIP clients in special circumstances. Perhaps next week would be possible, Alexei suggested. Sir, may I ask if you've dined with us before? Brandon probed. No, this would be my first visit, Alexei answered honestly. Brandon's assumptions solidified. First-time visitor, foreign accent, calling day before, for premium reservation. Classic red flags for someone unfamiliar with fine dining protocols. I see. Well, 11 Madison Park operates at a very exclusive level. Our tasting menu is quite sophisticated, and the dining experience requires familiarity with advanced culinary concepts. This was elitist gatekeeping disguised as customer service. Are you visiting from Ukraine? Brandon asked, making assumptions about tourist status. I live in New York, Alexei clarified. Oh, how long have you been in the city? Brandon continued his informal screening process. 14 years, Alexei replied patiently. Brandon was surprised but maintained his discriminatory approach. And what brings you to 11 Madison Park? Special occasion? Business dinner with colleagues, Alexei explained. What type of business? Brandon probed further, trying to assess Alexei's economic status and social standing. Hospitality industry, Alexei answered modestly. Brandon interpreted this as probably hotel maintenance or restaurant service work. In his biased mind, service industry workers didn't belong at world-renowned establishments. I see. Well, 11 Madison Park's price point is quite high. Our tasting menu is $395 per person before beverage pairings. Are you familiar with fine dining costs? This was patronizing economic discrimination, implying Alexei couldn't afford their prices. I understand the cost structure, Alexei replied calmly, and the dress code is very strict. Business formal required, no exceptions. Brandon was creating barriers based on assumptions about Alexei's background and familiarity with upscale dining. Brandon realized he hadn't gotten Alexei's name. Petrov. Alexei Petrov. Brandon didn't recognize the name, confirming his assumption about unfamiliar clientele. Mr. Petrov, I have to be honest. 11 Madison Park's reservation system prioritizes our established guests and industry professionals. First-time visitors typically need to join our waiting list, which currently extends 7 months. This was partially fabricated. While they did prioritize regulars, the 7-month waiting list was exaggerated. Additionally, Brandon continued, We require full prepayment for reservations, and our cancellation policy is quite strict. That's acceptable, Alexei said. Brandon was running out of reasonable objections. There's also a wine pairing expectation. Most guests participate in our sommelier selections, which add $195 per person. Fine, Alexei agreed, and our clientele expects a certain level of dining sophistication. Familiarity with molecular gastronomy, wine service protocols, culinary presentations. Brandon was implying that Alexei lacked the cultural refinement for their establishment. Mr. Petrov, Brandon said with false regret, given all these considerations, I think 11 Madison Park might not be the best fit for your dining needs. Perhaps I could recommend some excellent restaurants more suited to your background. This was clear discrimination based on accent and assumptions about cultural background. What restaurants would you recommend? Alexei asked curiously. There are several wonderful establishments in Little Ukraine in the East Village, or perhaps some nice places in Brighton Beach. Brandon was directing Alexei toward ethnic restaurants based purely on his Ukrainian accent, assuming he'd be more comfortable with his own kind. I appreciate the suggestions, Alexei said politely, but I'm specifically interested in 11 Madison Park. I understand, but honestly, the reservation list is closed to new guests this quarter. Restaurant policy. This was a lie. 11 Madison Park accepted new reservations constantly, but Brandon was using fake policies to justify his discrimination. Could I speak with the general manager? Alexei requested. He's in meetings all day and would tell you the same thing. Perhaps try calling again in a few months. Brandon was now actively blocking Alexei's access to higher management. We need to analyze our audience. If you could tell us where you watched our video in the comments section and also hit the like button, that would make us very happy. While Brandon continued his discriminatory tactics, Alexei's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Caller ID, James Beard Foundation, Executive Director. Excuse me one moment, Alexei said, answering the call on speaker. Alexei, this is Mitchell from James Beard Foundation. We need to confirm your attendance at tomorrow's Outstanding Restaurant Awards ceremony. You're presenting the Lifetime Achievement Award. Brandon stopped talking, suddenly paying attention to the conversation. Of course I'll be there, Alexei replied. Will the ceremony run late? I have a business dinner afterward. Not too late. By the way, congratulations on Petrov Hospitality Group winning Restaurant Group of the Year again. 3 years running. Impressive. Brandon's confidence began wavering. James Beard Foundation was the most prestigious culinary organization in America. This caller was discussing awards with Alexei as if he were someone important in the restaurant industry. Thank you, Mitchell. We're honored by the continued recognition. After hanging up, Brandon stared at Alexei with new uncertainty. Mr. Petrov, Brandon said carefully, was that about restaurant industry awards? Yes, annual industry recognition ceremony, Alexei replied modestly. Brandon's mental framework was shifting. People presenting James Beard Awards weren't casual diners. They were major figures in the culinary world. While Alexei waited on hold, Brandon discreetly Googled Alexei Petrov and Petrov Hospitality Group. What he found made his blood run cold. Petrov Hospitality Group, East Coast's largest fine dining conglomerate, 73 restaurants including 15 Michelin-starred establishments, annual revenue $947 million, CEO Alexei Petrov. Brandon's hands started shaking as he read further. Alexei Petrov wasn't just a restaurant industry figure, he was one of the most powerful hospitality moguls in America. Worse yet, Brandon discovered that 11 Madison Park had been in acquisition talks with Petrov Hospitality Group for 8 months. Their biggest potential buyer was on the phone, and Brandon had just spent 15 minutes discriminating against him. Brandon's phone buzzed with a text from 11 Madison Park's owner. Petrov evaluation dinner confirmed for tomorrow. This acquisition could be our biggest opportunity ever. Make sure everything is perfect. Brandon realized he had just destroyed his restaurant's most important business relationship through pure prejudice and ignorance. Brandon returned to the call with newfound nervousness. Mr. Petrov, I want to apologize for the delay. I've been checking our reservation system more thoroughly. Take your time, Alexei replied calmly. Actually, it appears we have a last-minute cancellation for tomorrow evening. Would 8 p.m. work for your party? This was Brandon desperately trying to repair the damage by finding a table that had always been available. That would be perfect, Alexei said. Wonderful. And Mr. Petrov, if I may ask, you mentioned the hospitality industry. Do you work with restaurants? I own several restaurants, Alexei answered modestly. Brandon's stomach dropped. Really? Which establishments? Various locations throughout New York and the East Coast, Alexei replied without specifics. Brandon was terrified to ask more, knowing he'd already made potentially career-ending assumptions. That's fascinating. I'm sure you understand the restaurant business very well. I try to, Alexei said diplomatically. Alexei's phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Daniel Humm, chef. He answered on speaker. Hello, Chef Humm. Alexei, my friend. I wanted to personally confirm tomorrow's special tasting menu for your acquisition evaluation. Should I prepare the seasonal menu we discussed? Brandon listened in growing horror. Daniel Humm, one of the world's most famous chefs, was calling Alexei personally, discussing special menu preparations. That sounds perfect, Daniel. I'm looking forward to experiencing 11 Madison Park's renowned cuisine. Excellent. The whole team is excited to cook for you. This potential acquisition is very important to our future. Brandon's world collapsed. Acquisition? Alexei wasn't just making a reservation, he was potentially buying the restaurant. Daniel, Alexei continued, I just made the reservation through your front desk. There seemed to be some initial confusion about availability. Confusion? But Brandon knows about the importance of tomorrow's evaluation dinner. Did he not recognize your name? Alexei glanced at the phone where Brandon was listening to every word. Perhaps there was a miscommunication. I'll speak with Brandon immediately. This evaluation must be flawless. After the call ended, Brandon could barely breathe. He had just discriminated against the potential buyer of his restaurant. Within minutes, Brandon's phone rang. 11 Madison Park's owner, Will Gadara, was calling in a panic. Brandon, what the hell happened with Alexei Petrov's reservation? Brandon could barely speak. Sir, I didn't realize who he was. You didn't realize because you made assumptions based on his accent. Do you understand that you just insulted the man who might buy this restaurant for $200 million? Sir, I can fix this. Fix this? Brandon, you told one of the most powerful restaurant owners in America that 11 Madison Park wasn't suitable for his background. You directed him to ethnic restaurants in Little Ukraine. Will had obviously been briefed on the entire discriminatory conversation. I'll apologize personally. You'll do nothing. You're fired. Security will escort you out immediately. 6 months later, 11 Madison Park implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination training for all staff, focusing on unconscious bias in hospitality services. Brandon Mitchell never worked in fine dining again. His discriminatory behavior was documented and shared across the industry, making him unemployable in upscale restaurants. Alexei Petrov did acquire 11 Madison Park, making it the flagship restaurant in Petrov Hospitality Group's portfolio. Under his ownership, the restaurant maintained its world ranking while implementing inclusive service policies. Most importantly, Alexei established the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Dining Access Foundation, providing legal advocacy and training for immigrant business owners facing discrimination in hospitality settings. The foundation worked with fine dining establishments across the country to eliminate accent-based discrimination and cultural profiling in restaurant service. 11 Madison Park's new mission statement, displayed prominently at the entrance, reads, "Culinary excellence welcomes all backgrounds, no exceptions." Alexei continued expanding Petrov Hospitality Group, which now includes 127 restaurants across 18 states, proving that assumptions about accents are more limiting than any language barrier. Sometimes the person you exclude from your restaurant owns the industry you're trying to serve. And sometimes the accent you mock speaks the language of success more fluently than native speakers. Brandon Mitchell learned too late that in the world of fine dining, the most sophisticated ingredient is respect for every customer.